What if I told you that some of Hollywood's most beloved stars were living with secrets so devastating that entire studios worked around the clock to hide them from the public? Behind the glamorous facades of Clark Gable's charming smile, Judy Garland's radiant performances, and Harold Lloyd's daredevil stunts lay physical and emotional struggles so profound that they would have ended careers instantly if the truth had come to light. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the stories the studios buried, the prosthetic limbs, the agonizing pain endured for a single scene, the mental health battles fought in silence, and the desperate measures taken to maintain the illusion of perfection. These aren't just tales of Hollywood excess. They're stories of human resilience that will forever change how you see these legendary stars. In the golden age of silent cinema, Harold Lloyd stood shoulder to shoulder with legends like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton. He was known for his charm, his boyish optimism, and above all, his physical comedy. The image of him hanging perilously from a giant clock in safety last is etched into film history. It was daring, fearless, funny, but behind the lass was a man who knew pain more intimately than the public ever guessed. In August of 1919, Harold was just 26 years old and on the rise. During a photo shoot, a prop that was believed to be a fake bomb was handed to him for a publicity picture. As he lit what he thought was a harmless fuse, the bomb exploded in his hand. The blast tore through his right hand, blowing off his thumb and index finger. It also damaged his face and temporarily blinded him. For weeks, he lived in fear, not just for his life, but for his career. In a world where physicality was everything, an actor who couldn't perform stunts was as good as forgotten. The doctors saved what they could. He wore a flesh-colored prosthetic glove over a specially designed mechanical hand. Few outside his closest circle ever knew the truth. And Harold, he never let it show. He went back to work with the same daring ambition, climbing buildings, leaping between cars, hanging from ledges. Every stunt now carried more risk, more pain, more courage. But he never complained. He never used it as a crutch. The studios never publicized his injury. There were no headlines, no press releases. Hollywood couldn't afford to shatter the illusion of perfection. And Harold played along, smiling for cameras, shaking hands with his left, signing autographs with a practiced ease. His injury didn't define his legacy, but it deepens it. Because Harold Lloyd wasn't just a comic genius. He was a man who refused to let tragedy write his final act. And that, perhaps, was his most heroic performance of all. Clark Gable, the king with the painful smile. To the world, Clark Gable was the king of Hollywood. A tall, handsome leading man with a rakish smile and a voice that could melt hearts. He lit up the screen in Gone with the Wind, It Happened One Night, and dozens of other classics. But behind that iconic smile was a secret that caused him daily agony. In his early years, Gable suffered from a severe gum infection, likely brought on by poor dental hygiene and the lack of modern treatment. By his early 30s, he had lost most of his natural teeth. Dentists fitted him with dentures, but they were far from perfect. The dentures caused chronic mouth pain. They also made eating difficult and affected his speech. At times, Gable would slur certain words or speak with a slightly clenched jaw. Something fans often mistook for a tough guy persona. In truth, he was masking discomfort. The king of Hollywood was gritting his teeth, literally, through many of his most famous scenes. But the effects didn't stop there. The ongoing infections contributed to foul-smelling breath, something co-stars quietly noticed but rarely mentioned. There were rumors that some actresses dreaded kissing scenes with him, and yet Gable always managed to appear confident, suave, in control. Directors and producers worked around his condition. They adjusted lighting and sound to hide imperfections. Scripts were written to avoid certain challenging dialogue. And Gable himself learned how to hide his pain, how to control his expressions. When he smiled, It wasn't effortless, it was practiced. When he delivered lines, it was through discomfort. But the audience never knew. Behind the curtain, Clark Gable dealt with the reality of chronic pain, insecurity, and the constant pressure to appear perfect. He could have stepped back. He could have let the pain take over. But instead, he leaned in, took on tougher roles, filmed grueling scenes, became a symbol of rugged masculine. His charm wasn't just natural, it was defiant. Clark Gable's career wasn't built only on talent and looks. It was built on resilience. Because the King of Hollywood didn't just act through the pain, he ruled through it. Judy Garland, the glittering star beneath the weight of pain. Judy Garland was more than a performer. She was a symbol of Hollywood's golden era. With a voice that could move hearts and a presence that lit up the screen, she captured the imagination of millions. But while the world saw her as the girl who sang "Over the Rainbow," the reality behind the curtain was far more heartbreaking. From the moment she entered the studio system as a young teenager, Judy became a product of Hollywood. MGM executives decided everything for her. What she wore, what she ate, even when she slept. They saw her as talented, but not traditionally beautiful. And to make her camera ready, they forced her onto a strict regimen of pills. Amphetamines to stay awake, barbiturates to fall asleep, diet pills to keep her weight down. Over time, these became not just tools of the studio, but the beginning of a lifelong addiction. The physical consequences were brutal. Garland suffered from fatigue, anxiety, and malnutrition. She often collapsed from exhaustion on set, but was quickly propped back up, made up, and sent back in front of the camera. Her pain was hidden, minimized, denied, all in the name of keeping the show going. And still, she delivered. In The Wizard of Oz, her innocence felt so real because it came from a very vulnerable place. Her voice in Somewhere Over the Rainbow wasn't just acting. It was the quiet, desperate dream of someone trying to escape a world that was crushing her spirit. But Judy Garland's struggles didn't end when the camera stopped rolling. The pressure followed her throughout her life, in every performance, every public appearance. She became a legend, but at great cost. Her story is a haunting reminder of the toll fame can take, especially when the person behind the icon is treated more like a product than a human being. Judy's legacy endures, not just because of her talent, but because her pain, though hidden, was real. And for those who look closely, it echoes in every note she ever sang. Jane Stewart, the reluctant hero's hidden burden. Jane Stewart, often remembered as Hollywood's quintessential everyman, with his warm voice and genuine demeanor, was much more than just a beloved actor. Behind the scenes of his illustrious career lay a deeply personal struggle that remained hidden from the public eye for decades. This was a struggle born not of the glamorous world of show business, but of the brutal realities of war. During World War II, Stewart put his flourishing acting career on hold to serve his country in the U.S. Army Air Forces. He was not merely a figurehead. Stewart flew numerous combat missions as a bomber pilot, a role that demanded immense courage and skill. His wartime service earned him several commendations and solidified his image as a patriotic hero. Yet, it was during these missions that he sustained a serious injury, a severe back injury that would profoundly affect his life thereafter. The injury occurred during a perilous flight when the aircraft experienced violent turbulence and emergency maneuvers, putting immense strain on Stewart's body. The back injury was painful and chronic, causing ongoing discomfort and limiting his physical mobility. For most, such an injury would be a clear signal to slow down or retire from demanding physical activity. But Stewart was determined not to let his injury define him or end his career prematurely. Returning to Hollywood after the war, Stewart faced a new challenge: how to maintain his career while managing this hidden pain. Physical stamina and the ability to perform demanding roles were vital for an actor of his caliber. Yet Stewart's back condition meant he could no longer endure intense physical scenes or prolonged shoots without suffering. Despite this, he never publicly acknowledged his injury or the impact it had on his work. Instead, he worked quietly and diligently to mask his pain. He would subtly shift his posture to relieve pressure on his back, carefully timing his movements to minimize pain. Directors and cameramen collaborated with him, often employing strategic camera angles and blocking to hide any signs of physical limitation. Scenes were sometimes rewritten or choreographed to avoid strenuous activity. This behind-the-scenes teamwork allowed Stewart to preserve his on-screen image as the robust, charismatic leading man audiences adored. Beyond the physical challenges, the emotional toll was significant. Stewart had to navigate the frustration of his injury, the fear of being perceived as weak, and the pressure to live up to his own high standards and public expectations. The Hollywood system prized perfection, and admitting vulnerability risked damaging his carefully cultivated image. His perseverance paid off. Stewart continued to deliver memorable performances in classics like It's a Wonderful Life and Rear Window, roles that showcased his acting depth without requiring strenuous physicality. Yet, the hidden burden of his war injury remained a private ordeal, known only to close friends and family. James Stewart's story is a powerful testament to the silent struggles behind the glitz of fame. It highlights the sacrifices that often go unseen, the physical pain masked by smiles, the personal battles fought away from the spotlight. His resilience and quiet strength remind us that true heroism isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it's the courage to endure and keep moving forward despite pain. In revealing this hidden chapter of Stewart's life, Lon Chaney Jr., the man who became his monsters, Lon Chaney Jr. wasn't just an actor. He was a man who lived inside the characters he portrayed. Best known for his roles in classic horror films like The Wolfman, Chaney brought a terrifying realism to his performances. But few knew how much of that realism came from real, physical pain. Pain he willingly endured in service to his craft. Following in the footsteps of his legendary father, Lon Chaney Sr., the man of 1,000 faces, Lon Jr. was determined to honor that legacy. He believed that true performance came from complete immersion, even if it meant pushing his body to its limits. And that's exactly what he did. When he played Larry Talbot in The Wolfman, the transformation sequences, long before CGI, involved hours of grueling makeup sessions. Thick layers of yak hair were painstakingly glued to his skin, piece by piece, and then singed to create the illusion of fur. The chemicals burned. The adhesives irritated his skin, and yet Lon never complained. In some scenes, he wore heavy prosthetics that made it nearly impossible to breathe properly, and his vision was often obscured. But the most shocking stories were of the moments he took things even further, deliberately refusing painkillers, sometimes insisting on real restraints or sharp props, all to heighten the authenticity. One crew member later said Chaney would suffer for the scream, believing audiences could tell the difference between pretend pain and the real thing. Off-screen, those choices left scars. Lon suffered chronic injuries, especially to his back and joints, due to years of performing his own stunts and enduring punishing effects work, combined with struggles in his personal life, including alcohol dependence. His health steadily declined, but he never backed away from a role, even when the cost was clearly visible. Lon Chaney Jr.'s story is one of sacrifice, of an actor who believed his duty was to serve the character, no matter the toll. His monsters terrified generations, but behind each growl and snarl was a man giving everything he had, including his own well-being, to bring fear to life. Barbara Payton beauty, scandal, and the Hollywood spiral. Barbara Payton was once Hollywood's golden girl, stunningly beautiful, ambitious, and on the brink of becoming a major star in the 1950s. With roles alongside screen legends like James Cagney and Gary Cooper, her future seemed destined for stardom. But behind the bright lights and red carpets, Barbara's story took a tragic turn, one shaped by scandal, addiction, and the brutal machinery of fame. She was known not just for her talent, but for her boldness. Barbara embraced her sexuality at a time when Hollywood demanded a more restrained image of its starlets. That boldness caught attention, and then controversy. A public love triangle between her, actor Franchot Tone, and B-movie star Tom Neal exploded across tabloids. The affair ended violently when Neal assaulted Tone, leaving him with a broken cheekbone and a brain concussion. The scandal destroyed Barbara's reputation. Studios that once courted her suddenly backed away. Her contracts dried up. Directors stopped calling. In a matter of months, she went from Hollywood's rising star to a pariah. Struggling with rejection and the loss of her career, Barbara turned to alcohol and later drugs to cope. Her attempts to revive her career in low-budget films failed. The glamorous life she had known vanished, replaced by a cycle of arrests, short-lived relationships, and survival on the streets. By the 1960s, Barbara Payton was living in rundown hotels and sometimes prostituting herself to make ends meet. She published a brutally honest autobiography titled I Am Not Ashamed, in which she laid bare her downfall. It shocked readers, not just for its content, but for its rare candor. A former star admitting, without sugarcoating, how quickly Hollywood could turn its back. Barbara died at the age of 39 from heart and liver failure. The final chapter in a life filled with heartbreak and broken promises. Her story isn't just one of personal collapse. It's a haunting reflection of how Hollywood chews up those who don't fit the mold, and how fame can vanish overnight when image matters more than humanity. Merle Oberon, a car crash, a hidden identity, and the price of stardom. Merle Oberon was elegance incarnate. With her refined British accent and ethereal beauty, she quickly became one of the most sought-after actresses of the 1930s and 40s. Audiences adored her in films like The Scarlet Pimpernel and Wuthering Heights, where she played Kathy with haunting passion. But behind the glowing close-ups and couture gowns, Merle carried not one, but two hidden struggles. The first was physical. In 1937, at the height of her fame, Merle was in a horrific car accident while filming in London. The crash left her with severe facial injuries, including deep scars that threatened to end her on-screen career. But Merle was determined. Rather than fade into obscurity, she underwent a series of painful treatments, wore heavy makeup, and specialized lighting to conceal the damage, and insisted on tight control over how she was filmed. Her cameramen were sworn to secrecy, her close-ups meticulously arranged. The illusion remained intact, and audiences never suspected a thing. But perhaps more deeply hidden was the truth about her identity. For years, Merle claimed to be born in Tasmania to British parents. In reality, she was born in Bombay, India, and was of mixed Anglo-Indian descent. Her mother was reportedly of Sri Lankan or Maori heritage, a background that, in early 20th century Hollywood, could have ended her career before it even began. To protect her rising status in an industry that was deeply racist and classist, Merle invented a new origin story. She even passed off her own mother as a servant. The pressure of hiding both her physical scars and her racial heritage took a toll on Merle's psyche. Friends and biographers later described her as guarded, anxious, and often withdrawn when questioned about her past. She lived in constant fear of exposure, not just of her scars, but of a secret that could unravel her carefully crafted public image. Merle Oberon's story is a haunting example of what stars once had to sacrifice to survive in Hollywood. It wasn't just about talent. It was about fitting into a mold, maintaining a fantasy, and concealing anything that didn't align with the industry's narrow ideals. Gene Tierney, colorblindness, mental health struggles, and the price of perfection. Gene Tierney was the epitome of classic Hollywood beauty. Porcelain skin, piercing eyes, and a poised elegance that captivated millions. Best known for her iconic role in Lorre, 1944, Tierney became a symbol of grace and glamour. But beneath the surface of her radiant image lay a complex reality, marked by invisible struggles, both physical and emotional. One of her lesser-known challenges was colorblindness. Gene had difficulty distinguishing between red and green. But the real toll on Gene's life came from her mental health struggles. In the early 1940s, she gave birth to a daughter, Daria, who was born severely disabled due to prenatal exposure to rubella. The infection occurred when a fan broke quarantine to meet Gene at a USO event. The guilt Tierney carried from that incident became unbearable. Though she never blamed the fan publicly, the emotional trauma haunted her for years. As time went on, Gene's depression deepened. She was eventually diagnosed with bipolar disorder, known then by more stigmatized terms. Her condition led to severe mood swings, prolonged periods of despair, and even a suicide attempt. In the 1950s, after several hospitalizations, she underwent electric shock therapy, a common but harsh treatment of the era. Despite these battles, Gene Tierney attempted several comebacks, showing moments of brilliance and resilience. But her career never fully recovered from the toll her mental health had taken. In interviews, she spoke candidly and bravely about her illness, long before it was common or accepted to do so in Hollywood. Gene Tierney's legacy is more than her stunning performances. It's a testament to her strength, her vulnerability, and the high price of fame in an industry that demanded perfection, even when its stars were quietly falling apart behind the scenes. Bela Lugosi, injuries, addiction, and the haunting cost of typecasting. Bela Lugosi will forever be remembered as the definitive Count Dracula, the thick accent, piercing gaze, and hypnotic presence that defined horror cinema in the 1930s. But behind the cape and theatrical charm was a man deeply wounded, both physically and emotionally, by the very industry that made him a star. Lugosi's descent began with the grueling physical demands of his roles. Long before Hollywood, he was injured multiple times while serving in the Austro-Hungarian army during World War I. He suffered chronic leg and back pain, remnants of battlefield trauma, which only worsened with age and the physically intense roles he often took. Playing monsters and villains required him to perform unnatural movements, endure long hours in makeup, and often act in uncomfortable conditions. To cope with the pain, Lugosi turned to painkillers. Morphine and later methadone became part of his daily life, initially prescribed, but eventually forming a powerful addiction that haunted him for decades. At a time when addiction was a taboo topic, especially in Hollywood, Lugosi suffered mostly in silence, afraid of the stigma and how it would affect his career. Typecasting added another layer to his suffering. After the success of Dracula, Lugosi found himself trapped in the shadow of the vampire. Studio executives refused to cast him in anything but horror, and his heavy accent made transitioning into other genres difficult. As his peers found varied roles and continued success, Lugosi's offers shrank to low-budget films and fleeting cameos. His addiction worsened. By the 1950s, he was nearly destitute and working with director Ed Wood, known for his low-budget, often ridiculed films, just to survive. It was during this time that Lugosi finally checked himself into a hospital to seek help. In a groundbreaking moment for Hollywood, he became one of the first actors to publicly admit to substance addiction and voluntarily seek treatment, setting a precedent for others. Bela Lugosi died in 1956, nearly penniless, and still typecast as Dracula. He was even buried in his vampire cape. But behind the legend was a man who gave everything, including his health, for his art. His story is a haunting reminder of the hidden wounds carried by even the most iconic stars, and the painful cost of being forever seen as only one character. Katharine Hepburn, essential tremor and a life of graceful resilience. Katharine Hepburn, bold, brilliant, and fiercely independent, was one of Hollywood's most celebrated actresses. With 4 Academy Awards and a career that spanned over 6 decades, she redefined what it meant to be a leading lady. But behind her confident presence and sharp wit, she quietly battled a neurological condition that could have ended her career before it began. Essential tremor. Essential tremor is a progressive disorder of the nervous system that causes involuntary, rhythmic shaking, especially in the hands, arms, or voice. For Hepburn, the tremor affected her head and voice, and in later years became increasingly visible. Yet, unlike many stars who might have hidden their condition or stepped out of the spotlight, Hepburn leaned in with characteristic defiance. By the 1960s, her trembling voice became part of her signature. But few realized it was due to a medical condition. Many assumed it was simply aging, or part of her traumatic persona. But in truth, Hepburn had been experiencing symptoms for years, possibly since her 40s, long before they became noticeable on screen. She never officially confirmed having essential tremor during her life. But in interviews and biographies, those closest to her acknowledged the diagnosis. Instead of avoiding public appearances or roles that highlighted her tremor, Hepburn adapted. She developed a commanding physicality, upright posture, strong eye contact, and intentional hand gestures that helped minimize the appearance of shaking. Off-screen, she kept active. Hepburn was known for her athleticism, swimming in cold water well into her old age and gardening for hours. Her lifestyle, rooted in discipline and physical strength, helped her remain in control of her body for as long as possible. She also never allowed sympathy or pity to define her. In her words, never complain, never explain. Her resilience was especially evident in her later roles. In On Golden Pond, 1981, opposite Henry Fonda, her tremor was unmistakable. But instead of masking it, the film embraced her authentic presence. The performance earned her yet another Oscar, her 4th, proving that vulnerability and strength can coexist. Katharine Hepburn's battle with essential tremor is rarely discussed, but her ability to shine, not despite it, but with it, is a powerful message. In an industry obsessed with perfection, she showed that true greatness comes not from hiding flaws, but from rising above them with grace, honesty, and courage. Lionel Barrymore, arthritis and the studio's clever manipulation. Lionel Barrymore, the patriarch of the legendary Barrymore acting family, was known for his powerful voice, commanding presence, and memorable roles, especially as the stern Mr. Potter in It's a Wonderful Life. But what many fans don't know is that for a large portion of his later career, Barrymore was living with crippling arthritis that left him confined to a wheelchair. Barrymore's arthritis began affecting him in the early 1930s. At first, he managed to hide the pain using canes and braces. But as the disease progressed, his joints stiffened and the pain became unbearable. By 1938, he was no longer able to walk. Yet despite his condition, he didn't retire. Instead, he transformed his disability into part of his on-screen persona. MGM Studios, recognizing Barrymore's immense talent and public appeal, refused to let his condition sideline him. They got creative. Writers began crafting characters who used wheelchairs or had limited mobility, allowing Barrymore to continue performing without having to stand or move extensively. In many of his later roles, including in the Dr. Kildare series, where he played the wise and witty Dr. Gillespie, the wheelchair became a part of the character rather than a limitation. But not all of this was done with full transparency. The studio, determined to preserve Barrymore's image, would often claim he had broken his hip or suffered an accident, rather than revealing the full extent of his illness. The public narrative was carefully controlled, presenting him as temporarily injured, not permanently disabled. Barrymore himself was deeply frustrated by his condition. He was known to be fiercely independent and active before his illness. Painting, composing music, even racing cars, he was a man of many talents. Losing his mobility was emotionally devastating, but he didn't let it define him. Instead, he channeled his frustration into performance, often playing characters who were gruff, brilliant, and unafraid to challenge others. Roles that mirror his own fight against the limitations imposed by his illness. He continued acting well into the 1950s, inspiring others with his resilience. Lionel Barrymore's story is not just about pain, but about perseverance. He showed that physical limitations do not erase talent or worth, and that with the right support and determination, it's possible to thrive, even when the body refuses to cooperate. Through clever studio adaptation and sheer willpower, Barrymore didn't just endure. He commanded the screen. Montgomery Clift, car accident and its aftermath. Montgomery Clift was one of the most gifted and magnetic actors of Hollywood's golden age. With his brooding intensity and emotional depth, he helped usher in a new era of performance, raw, vulnerable, and deeply human. But his promising career took a devastating turn one night in 1956 when a horrific car accident changed everything. Clift had just left a dinner party at Elizabeth Taylor's house when he lost control of his car and crashed into a telephone pole. The impact was brutal. His face was crushed, jaw broken, nose shattered, and several teeth knocked out. Elizabeth Taylor, who was following behind, was the first on the scene. She reportedly reached into his throat to clear debris so he wouldn't choke. The damage was so severe that Clift required extensive reconstructive surgery. His once smooth, Hollywood, obsessed with appearance, was shaken. Many feared this accident marked the end of his career, but Clift refused to disappear. He returned to the screen just months later to finish Raintree County, co-starring Elizabeth Taylor. The change in his appearance between the pre- and post-accident scenes is startling. Critics and audiences were shocked and sympathetic. Yet the studios, while supportive at first, grew cautious. Leading man roles became fewer, and producers questioned his ability to carry films. The physical scars were just the beginning. Clift suffered from chronic pain, an increasing dependence on alcohol and prescription drugs, which worsened his mental health. Friends and colleagues noticed a difference. The once meticulous and focused actor became erratic and withdrawn. Director Stanley Kramer famously described the latter half of Clift's life as the longest suicide in Hollywood history. Still, even through the pain, Clift delivered some of his most powerful performances post-accident. The Misfits, Suddenly, last summer, and Judgment at Nuremberg, for which he received an Oscar nomination. These roles showcase not only his talent, but his incredible emotional range and vulnerability. Montgomery Clift's story is tragic, but also a testament to courage. Despite physical and emotional devastation, he fought to keep acting, not out of vanity, but because it was who he was. His legacy isn't just about a handsome star who lost his looks. It's about an artist who refused to be defined by tragedy and who continued to pour truth and soul into his work, even as his world crumbled around him. Peter Lorre, physical deformities and typecasting. Peter Lorre was one of classic Hollywood's most distinctive faces and voices. Wide, haunting eyes, a hunched posture, and the soft, eerie tone that sent chills down audiences' spines. But behind that unforgettable screen presence was a man constantly battling the physical and emotional consequences of being different. Born in what is now Slovakia in 1904, Lorre had chronic health issues from a young age, including a spinal curvature that affected his posture and led to his unique, almost serpentine body language. His eyes, large, expressive, and slightly asymmetrical, became his trademark. But these traits, instead of opening doors, confined him to narrow and often disturbing roles. Lorre gained international fame in 1931 with his chilling performance as a child murderer in Fritz Lang's M. Despite the film's brilliance, the role set the tone for much of his career. Sinister, unstable, even monstrous characters. When he fled Nazi Germany due to his Jewish heritage and arrived in Hollywood, his physical appearance and accent led to immediate typecasting. In films like The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, and the Mr. Moto detective series, Lorre was either the sleazy sidekick, the creepy foreigner, or the criminal mastermind. Directors and casting agents rarely saw past his deformities or took a chance on his dramatic range. Even though he was a classically trained actor, capable of far more than sinister laughs and shady glances, this constant typecasting took a toll on Lorre. He once said, "All I ever wanted to do was play normal people." But Hollywood didn't allow it. His unusual looks and European background became both his brand and his prison. Off-screen, he struggled with addiction to morphine, originally prescribed for chronic gallbladder pain. Even so, Lorre remained a beloved figure among directors, fans, and fellow actors. Alfred Hitchcock admired his talent, and Vincent Price considered him a dear friend. His influence can still be felt in popular culture, from Looney Tunes caricatures to the voice of Ren in Ren and Stimpy, which was inspired by Lorre's speech and mannerisms. Peter Lorre's legacy is one of contradiction, a man celebrated for his uniqueness, yet punished for it. He made the most of the roles he was given, infusing even the most villainous characters with depth and pathos. But behind every iconic performance was a performer aching to be seen as more than a physical oddity, to be seen simply as human. Mary Astor's stroke and fading legacy. Mary Astor's journey through Hollywood was marked by both remarkable success and heartbreaking hardship. Rising to fame in the 1920s and 30s, she was known for her captivating performances in classics like The Maltese Falcon and The Great Lie. Her presence on screen was magnetic, combining elegance with emotional depth, earning her a lasting place in cinematic history. But behind the scenes, Mary faced a devastating challenge. In the mid-1940s, just as her career seemed to be flourishing, she suffered a severe stroke. This sudden medical emergency left her with significant physical impairments, partial paralysis, and difficulties with speech and movement. For an actress whose craft depended on precise control of expression and voice, these injuries were catastrophic. Despite her determination to keep acting, the stroke changed everything. Studios, focused on the image of perfection and dependability, began to hesitate in casting her. The grueling demands of filming, including long hours and intense emotional work, became nearly impossible for her to meet. The Hollywood machine, notorious for its lack of compassion towards aging or disabled stars, left Mary with fewer opportunities. As a result, Mary's presence on the big screen slowly faded. She took on fewer roles and retreated from the limelight, struggling not only with her physical condition, but also with the emotional weight of losing her professional identity. The isolation that came with her retreat deepened the pain of her hidden struggle. Her story is a powerful reminder that the glamour of Hollywood often hides unseen battles. Mary Astor's legacy is one of resilience, a testament to the courage it takes to face personal tragedy while living under the harsh scrutiny of an unforgiving industry. Though her star dimmed, the impact of her talent and her quiet strength continues to resonate, shedding light on the human cost behind the glitz and glamour of fame. Susan Peters. Paralysis and industry neglect. Susan Peters was a rising star in the 1940s, known for her natural beauty and captivating performances. Her promising career took a tragic turn in 1945 when she suffered a severe spinal cord injury after a hunting accident, which left her paralyzed from the waist down. This sudden and life-altering event should have been met with support and understanding. But Hollywood's response was far from compassionate. The studios, obsessed with maintaining glamorous images and box office appeal, largely neglected Susan's plight. Roles dried up quickly, and she was often overlooked for leading parts because of her disability. Despite her talent and determination, the industry wasn't ready to accommodate an actress who no longer fit the traditional mold of a Hollywood star. Undeterred, Susan fought to continue her career. She appeared in a few films that acknowledged her condition, taking on roles that reflected her new reality. Yet these parts were few and far between, and she faced constant challenges both on and off set. The lack of accessible facilities and limited understanding made everyday work a struggle. Her personal life also suffered under the weight of her injury and the industry's cold shoulder. Susan's health declined, and she battled depression and loneliness, feeling isolated from the vibrant career she once had. Susan Peters' story exposes the harsh truth about Hollywood's past indifference toward actors with disabilities. It highlights the invisible battles many stars faced, forced to conceal pain and struggle to fit into an unforgiving industry. Her courage and resilience remain an important chapter in the ongoing conversation about inclusion and representation in entertainment, reminding us how far we still need to go. Frances Farmer's mental health struggles and institutionalization. Frances Farmer was a talented and promising actress whose career was marked by both brilliance and tragedy. Despite her early success in Hollywood during the 1930s and 1940s, she faced profound struggles with mental health that remained hidden from the public eye for many years. Diagnosed with bipolar disorder, Frances endured severe mood swings, episodes of depression, and periods of intense agitation that affected both her personal life and professional opportunities. As her condition worsened, the studio system showed little sympathy or understanding. Instead of offering support, they often exploited her struggles, and her behavior was labeled as difficult or uncooperative. In 1942, after a series of increasingly erratic incidents, Frances was committed to a mental institution where she endured shock therapy and other harsh treatments that were common at the time but are now widely regarded as inhumane. Her institutionalization was kept largely out of the public eye, and when news did leak, it was often sensationalized or dismissed. Frances fought fiercely to regain her autonomy, but the stigma surrounding mental illness in Hollywood made it nearly impossible for her to revive her career. Her story reveals the dark reality many stars faced when grappling with mental health issues in an era that lacked compassion and proper care. It exposes how the pressure to maintain a perfect image pushed those suffering into silence and suffering behind closed doors. Frances Farmer's life is a powerful reminder of the need for empathy and better mental health awareness, both then and now. John Garfield's heart condition and untimely death. John Garfield was one of Hollywood's most magnetic and intense actors during the 1930s and 1940s, known for his powerful performances and his ability to portray complex, often troubled characters. But behind his captivating screen presence, Garfield was fighting a serious and hidden battle, a chronic heart condition that gradually took a toll on his health and ultimately his life. Garfield suffered from rheumatic heart disease, a condition that damaged his heart valves and weakened his heart muscle. This illness caused him frequent pain, fatigue, and shortness of breath, making even everyday activities a challenge. Yet, Like many stars of his era, he concealed his condition, determined not to appear weak or vulnerable in the eyes of the public or the Hollywood studio system. His career was marked by relentless work as he pushed himself to maintain his rising status despite the physical strain. The studios demanded long hours and emotional intensity, and Garfield gave his all to every role, often performing under great discomfort. This determination made him beloved by audiences and respected by peers, but it also masked the harsh reality of his deteriorating health. Adding to his physical struggles were the immense pressures of the time, including the political witch hunts of the McCarthy era. Garfield was scrutinized for alleged communist sympathies, which caused immense personal and professional stress. This external pressure only compounded the toll his heart condition was already taking. Despite his best efforts to manage his illness, Garfield's heart condition worsened. The combination of overwork, stress, and untreated medical issues pushed his health into a critical state. In 1952, at the young age of 39, John Garfield suffered a fatal heart attack. His sudden death shocked Hollywood and his many fans worldwide. Garfield's story is a stark reminder of the hidden physical and emotional struggles that often lie behind the glamorous facade of stardom. While the world admired his talent and charisma, few understood the severity of the pain he endured. His life and untimely death exposed the darker side of fame, a world where the cost of maintaining a perfect image can come at the expense of one's very survival. Hattie McDaniel's Oscar win and subsequent struggles. Hattie McDaniel made history in 1940 as the first African American to win an Academy Award, receiving the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress for her role as Mammy in Gone with the Wind. This groundbreaking achievement marked a significant milestone in Hollywood, breaking racial barriers in an industry deeply rooted in segregation and discrimination. However, behind this triumph lay a series of personal and professional struggles that McDaniel faced throughout her career. Despite her Oscar win, she was often typecast in stereotypical roles that reinforced the limited and demeaning portrayals of black characters at the time. The Hollywood system offered few opportunities for African American actors to showcase their full range of talent, and McDaniel was no exception. Her success did not shield her from the harsh realities of racism. Even at the height of her fame, she encountered segregation and discrimination, including being barred from attending the Gone with the Wind premiere in Atlanta due to Jim Crow laws. This painful irony highlighted the deep contradictions of her career, celebrated on screen, but marginalized off it. Additionally, McDaniel endured significant health challenges. She battled breast cancer for several years, a struggle she kept largely private while continuing to work steadily in film, radio, and on stage. The physical toll of her illness, combined with the emotional strain of facing prejudice, weighed heavily on her. Despite these hardships, Hattie McDaniel remained a trailblazer and a symbol of resilience. Her Oscar win opened doors for future generations of black actors, even if her own journey was marked by pain and struggle. Her story reveals the complex reality behind a historic achievement. How a pioneer's path is often fraught with sacrifice and hidden battles, far from the spotlight's glow. The stories we've uncovered remind us that behind the glittering facade of Hollywood lies a world of hidden pain and resilience. These iconic stars, despite their fame and success, faced immense physical and emotional struggles, battles they often fought in silence to protect their careers and public images. Remembering their experiences is essential, not only to honor their courage, but also to understand the true human cost of fame. By shining a light on these hidden struggles, we gain a deeper appreciation for the strength it took to endure and the lasting impact they left on the entertainment industry. Their stories teach us empathy, remind us to look beyond appearances, and inspire us to value authenticity over perfection. If these stories moved you, don't let them vanish again. Like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to help keep their legacies alive.